They say that sometimes the most devastating betrayals come from the people we trust most, hidden behind the most innocent facades. My name is Michael, and this is the story of how discovering my wife's affair through our daughter's school project led me to orchestrate a revenge so methodical that it exposed not just her infidelity, but the web of lies she had woven around our entire family. My wife Jennifer and I had been married for 9 years when our 8-year-old daughter Emma came home from school excited about a family tree project she had been assigned. The project required students to interview family members about their backgrounds, collect family photos, and create a presentation about their heritage and family history. Emma was particularly excited because the project would allow her to learn more about Jennifer's side of the family, which had always been somewhat mysterious to me. Jennifer rarely talked about her childhood or her relatives, claiming that her family had been distant and that she preferred to focus on the future rather than dwelling on the past. Jennifer seemed supportive of Emma's project at first, helping her organize the materials and suggesting that they start with my side of the family since those relatives were more accessible and willing to participate. Jennifer explained that her own family members were scattered across the country and might be difficult to reach for interviews. As Emma worked on the project over several weeks, I noticed that Jennifer became increasingly evasive whenever Emma asked questions about her family background. Jennifer would give vague answers about her childhood, claim that she couldn't remember specific details, or suggest that Emma focus on other aspects of the family tree instead. What struck me as particularly odd was that Jennifer seemed to have very few family photos from her childhood or young adulthood. When Emma asked to see pictures of Jennifer as a child or photos from Jennifer's wedding to her first husband, Jennifer claimed that most of her old photos had been lost in a move or damaged in a flood at her mother's house. Jennifer had been married once before we met, and she had always told me that her first marriage had ended amicably after a few years due to incompatibility. She claimed that she and her ex-husband had remained on friendly terms, but had naturally drifted apart over time. Jennifer rarely mentioned her first husband, and I had never met him or had any contact with him. As Emma's project progressed, she became frustrated with the lack of information about her mother's side of the family. Emma was a curious and persistent child, and she couldn't understand why her mother seemed to have so few memories or photos from her past. Emma began asking me if I could help her find information about Jennifer's family background. I realized that I actually knew very little about Jennifer's past beyond what she had told me. I had never met any of her family members, had never seen her childhood home, and had never been shown any documentation or photos that would verify the stories she had told me about her background. This realization was troubling because it suggested that Jennifer had been deliberately keeping her past hidden from me throughout our entire relationship. I began to wonder what she might be concealing and why she would go to such lengths to avoid sharing basic information about her family and personal history. I decided to help Emma with her project by doing some research into Jennifer's background. I started with basic public record searches, looking for information about Jennifer's birth, education, and previous marriage. What I discovered was shocking and completely contradicted everything Jennifer had told me about her past. According to public records, Jennifer's first marriage had not ended in an amicable divorce as she had claimed. Instead, her first husband had filed for divorce citing adultery, and the court records showed that Jennifer had been involved in multiple affairs during that marriage. The divorce had been contentious and bitter, with Jennifer's ex-husband seeking damages for her infidelity. Even more disturbing, I discovered that Jennifer's first marriage had ended only 6 months before she and I had started dating. This meant that Jennifer had been married to someone else for the first several months of our relationship, and she had been lying to me about her marital status from the very beginning of our romance. The public records also revealed that Jennifer had been using a different name during her first marriage, and that she had legally changed her name after the divorce. This explained why I had been unable to find much information about her background. She had essentially created a new identity for herself after her first marriage ended. I also discovered that Jennifer had declared bankruptcy shortly after her divorce, claiming significant debts that she attributed to her ex-husband's financial irresponsibility. However, the bankruptcy records showed that many of the debts were actually credit cards and loans that Jennifer had taken out in her own name, often without her first husband's knowledge. As I continued researching Jennifer's background, I found evidence that she had been involved in several other relationships during the period when she claimed to have been single and focusing on rebuilding her life after her divorce. These relationships overlapped with each other and with the early stages of our own relationship, suggesting that Jennifer had been maintaining multiple romantic relationships simultaneously. Most disturbing of all, I discovered that Jennifer was still in contact with several of these men, including her first husband. Phone records and social media activity showed that she had been communicating with them regularly throughout our marriage, often during times when she claimed to be working late or attending social events with female friends. I realized that Jennifer's secretiveness about her past was not just about embarrassment or a desire for privacy. She had been actively concealing a pattern of infidelity and deception that had apparently continued throughout our entire relationship. The woman I thought I had married was essentially a stranger who had constructed an elaborate false identity to hide her true character and behavior. I was not just angry about Jennifer's current infidelity. I was devastated by the realization that our entire marriage had been built on lies. Jennifer had deceived me about her past, her character, and her commitment to our relationship from the very beginning. Everything I thought I knew about my wife was false. I decided that Jennifer needed to face consequences for her systematic deception, but I also knew that I needed to protect Emma from the worst aspects of what I had discovered. Emma was an innocent child who loved her mother and didn't deserve to have her world destroyed by learning about Jennifer's betrayals. The plan I developed was designed to expose Jennifer's lies and infidelity while minimizing the impact on Emma. I wanted Jennifer to understand that her deception had been discovered and that she would face appropriate consequences, but I also wanted to handle the situation in a way that would protect our daughter's emotional well-being. Phase 1 involved gathering comprehensive evidence of Jennifer's deception and infidelity. I documented her lies about her past, collected proof of her ongoing relationships with other men, and gathered evidence of her financial deception during her first marriage. I also hired a private investigator to conduct surveillance of Jennifer's activities and to verify the information I had discovered through public records. I wanted to have irrefutable evidence of her current behavior as well as documentation of her past deceptions. Phase 2 involved consulting with a divorce attorney to understand my legal options and to develop a strategy for protecting Emma's interests during the divorce proceedings. I wanted to ensure that Jennifer's pattern of deception and infidelity would be properly documented in court and that Emma would be protected from any attempts by Jennifer to manipulate or deceive her during the divorce process. Phase 3 involved exposing Jennifer's deception to the people who mattered most in our lives, our families, close friends, and Emma's school community. I wanted them to understand that Jennifer had been systematically lying about her background and her commitment to our marriage. Phase 4 was more personal and involved confronting Jennifer with the evidence in a way that would force her to acknowledge the full scope of her deception. I wanted her to understand that her lies had been discovered and that she could no longer maintain the false identity she had constructed. The final phase involved helping Emma understand what was happening in our family in an age-appropriate way that would protect her from the worst details while still preparing her for the changes that would come with our divorce. The confrontation happened on a Sunday evening in November, exactly 2 months after Emma had started her family tree project. Jennifer had just returned from what she claimed was a book club meeting, and Emma was upstairs working on her homework. Instead of engaging in our usual evening routine, I presented Jennifer with a comprehensive report of everything I had discovered about her past and her current activities. The evidence was overwhelming and undeniable: public records, court documents, financial records, and surveillance photos that documented her ongoing deception. Jennifer's reaction was initially one of shock and panic as she realized that her carefully constructed false identity had been completely exposed. She tried to deny the evidence at first, claiming that there must be some mistake or that I was misinterpreting the information I had found. But the evidence was too comprehensive and detailed for her denials to be credible. I had documentation of her lies about her first marriage, proof of her ongoing relationships with other men, and evidence of her financial deception that went back years before we had even met. When Jennifer realized that denial wasn't working, she changed tactics and tried to minimize the significance of her deception. She claimed that she had lied about her past because she was ashamed of her mistakes and wanted to start fresh with me. She suggested that her current relationships with other men were just friendships and that I was overreacting to innocent communications. But I was not interested in Jennifer's attempts to justify or rationalize her systematic deception. The issue was not whether she had reasons for lying, But whether she had built our entire marriage on a foundation of lies and continued to deceive me throughout our relationship, she had chosen deception over honesty from the very beginning, and she needed to face the consequences of that choice. That evening, I also shared the evidence of Jennifer's deception with our families and close friends, showing them the documentation of her lies about her background and her ongoing infidelity. I wanted them to understand that Jennifer's deception was not a recent development, but a pattern of behavior that had been ongoing throughout our entire relationship. The reaction from our families and friends was shock and disappointment as they realized how Jennifer had been manipulating them and using their trust and support to maintain her deception. Many of them felt betrayed and used, understanding that Jennifer had been exploiting their care and concern for our family to cover her own selfish behavior. The legal and practical consequences for Jennifer were swift and comprehensive. I filed for divorce immediately, citing her systematic deception and ongoing infidelity as grounds for the dissolution of our marriage. The evidence I had gathered provided clear documentation of her pattern of lies and betrayal, making it impossible for her to contest the divorce or claim that our marriage had ended for other reasons. Jennifer was also forced to face the financial consequences of her deception when I revealed her hidden debts and ongoing financial obligations to men she had been involved with during our marriage. Her attempts to conceal these financial entanglements had put our family's financial security at risk, and she was held accountable for the damage her deception had caused. Most importantly, Jennifer was forced to confront the reality that her systematic lies had destroyed not just our marriage, but her relationship with Emma. Emma was old enough to understand that her mother had been lying about important aspects of their family history, and she felt betrayed and confused by the discovery that much of what she thought she knew about her mother was false. The most satisfying aspect of Jennifer's exposure was watching her realize that her own daughter's innocent school project had been the catalyst for uncovering her web of lies. The family tree assignment that was supposed to help Emma learn about her heritage had instead revealed that her mother had been systematically deceiving their entire family about her background and character. Jennifer had thought she was being clever by keeping her past hidden and maintaining multiple relationships while appearing to be a devoted wife and mother. But she had failed to consider that her lies would eventually be exposed, especially when her own daughter began asking questions about the family history that Jennifer had worked so hard to conceal. The divorce proceedings were straightforward and decisive. Jennifer's pattern of deception and infidelity was well documented through the evidence I had gathered, and she had no grounds to contest the dissolution of our marriage or to claim a significant portion of our shared assets. The systematic nature of her lies also influenced the court's decisions about custody arrangements and support obligations. Jennifer's relationships with the other men she had been involved with did not survive the exposure of her deception. Most of them had been unaware that she was married and had children, and they were not interested in continuing relationships with someone who had been systematically lying to them as well. Jennifer discovered that her web of deception had ultimately isolated her from everyone she had been manipulating. Most importantly, I was able to help Emma understand what had happened in our family in a way that protected her from the worst details while still preparing her for the changes that would come with our divorce. Emma was resilient and intelligent, and she was able to process the situation with the support of counseling and the love of family members who had not betrayed her trust. The family tree project that had started this entire discovery process became a valuable learning experience for Emma about the importance of honesty and integrity in family relationships. She learned that real family bonds are built on truth and trust, not on lies and deception, and she developed a stronger appreciation for the family members who had always been honest and supportive. Looking back on this experience, I am proud of the way I handled the discovery of Jennifer's systematic deception. I could have confronted her immediately when I first discovered her lies, but instead I took the time to gather comprehensive evidence and develop a strategic response that would protect Emma's interests while ensuring that Jennifer faced appropriate consequences. The marriage that I had thought was built on love and shared values had actually been undermined by systematic lies and manipulation from the very beginning. But the process of exposing Jennifer's deception had also revealed my own strength and resilience, and it had prepared me to build healthier relationships in the future based on genuine honesty and transparency. Jennifer's deception had been a betrayal not just of our marriage vows, but of our commitment to creating a stable and honest environment for raising our daughter. Her lies had put Emma's emotional well-being at risk and had deprived her of the opportunity to know the truth about her own family history. The revenge I orchestrated against Jennifer was comprehensive and devastating, but it was also necessary to protect Emma and ensure that the truth was revealed. Jennifer had chosen to build her entire adult life on a foundation of lies and manipulation, and she had to face the full consequences of that decision. The Family Tree Project that had been intended as an educational exercise about heritage and family history had instead become the catalyst for exposing the lies that had been poisoning our family for years. The irony was not lost on me that Jennifer's attempts to avoid sharing her family history had ultimately led to the discovery of her ongoing deception. In the end, Jennifer's systematic lies had achieved the opposite of what she had intended. Instead of protecting her from the consequences of her past mistakes, her deception had ultimately made those consequences much more severe and far-reaching. Instead of creating a stable family environment, her lies had destroyed the family she claimed to value. The most important outcome of this entire experience was that Emma and I were able to build a new life based on honesty and genuine connection. We were no longer living with the constant underlying tension of Jennifer's deception, and we were free to create authentic relationships with people who shared our values of truth and integrity. Emma's school project was eventually completed with the help of family members who were willing to share honest stories about our family history. Emma learned valuable lessons about the importance of truth in family relationships, and she developed a deeper appreciation for the relatives who had always been honest and supportive. The divorce became final within a year of my discovery of Jennifer's deception, and Emma and I were able to move forward knowing that we had handled the situation with dignity and strategic thinking. We had not allowed Jennifer's betrayal to destroy our own character or values, and we had ensured that the truth was revealed and justice was served. Jennifer learned that systematic deception comes with consequences that extend far beyond the immediate goals it is meant to achieve. She lost her marriage, her relationship with her daughter, and the respect of family and friends who had trusted her. She discovered that the trust and love of the people closest to her, once broken through systematic betrayal, could not be easily repaired or replaced. The revenge was complete, the truth was exposed, and Emma and I were finally free to build a new life based on the values of honesty and integrity that Jennifer had abandoned. We had won not just a legal victory in the divorce proceedings, but a moral victory that validated our commitment to truth and accountability in family relationships. Looking forward, I carried with me the lessons I had learned about the importance of paying attention to inconsistencies and gaps in people's stories, trusting my instincts when something doesn't seem right, and using available resources to verify important information rather than simply accepting what people tell me. The experience had been painful and difficult, but it had also been educational and ultimately liberating. I had learned that I was capable of handling systematic betrayal with strategic thinking and dignity, and I had proven to myself that I would not compromise my own values or Emma's well-being even when faced with the worst kind of personal deception. Jennifer's story became a cautionary tale about the dangers of building relationships on lies and manipulation, and about the way that truth has a tendency to reveal itself even when people go to great lengths to hide it. Her downfall served as a reminder that systematic deception ultimately destroys not just the relationships it is meant to preserve, but the character and integrity of the person who chooses lies over honesty. The Family Tree Project that had been meant to help Emma learn about her heritage had instead taught her valuable lessons about the importance of honesty and authenticity in family relationships. She learned that real family bonds are built on truth and shared values, not on lies and deception, and she developed a stronger foundation for building healthy relationships in her own future. In the end, the revenge was not just about exposing Jennifer's lies or ensuring that she faced consequences for her betrayal. It was about vindicating the principles of honesty and integrity that she had abandoned, and about proving that truth and accountability will ultimately prevail over systematic deception and manipulation. The marriage that Jennifer had destroyed through her lies was replaced by a new understanding of what genuine partnership should look like, built on transparency, mutual respect, and shared commitment to honesty in all aspects of life. Her betrayal had been devastating, but it had also been educational, and I was determined to use those lessons to build better relationships for Emma and myself in the future. Jennifer's systematic deception and the elaborate false identity she had constructed had ultimately cost her everything that should have mattered to her: her marriage, her relationship with her daughter, and the trust of the people who had loved her. The family tree project that exposed her lies served as a permanent reminder that truth has a way of revealing itself, no matter how carefully people try to hide it. The revenge was complete, justice was served, and Emma and I were finally free to move forward with our lives, knowing that we had handled one of the most difficult challenges a family can face with dignity, strategic thinking, and unwavering commitment to the truth. We had won not just a personal victory, but a moral triumph that would shape our family's values and priorities for generations to come.